What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Mason T and I am an importer slash product developer. But more importantly, I am the only contrarian voice when it comes to the eBay conversation on YouTube right now, because I am very critical of eBay reselling, and 99% of the conversation is constantly about eBay reselling. So I'm not against the idea of reselling at all. A lot of people get me wrong on that. It's the conversation about it that's being put out by all of the YouTubers who have positioned themselves as educators. And that's why I refer to them as gurus, because at any time, if you start putting out videos of tips, tricks, advice, stuff like that, then you have positioned yourself as an educator. And I have done the exact same thing, except the difference is that I'm not a reseller. I will openly say I'm not a reseller. Many times I get some kind of pushback of people saying that, like, oh, he's not a reseller, he doesn't understand. But the thing is that what I do, mostly private labeling, is far more complex than what reselling is. I don't have to do reselling to understand reselling, because for me, it's a lot like explaining a bicycle to a mechanic, if I'm trying to be as modest as possible about it. Because what's happening in reselling has a lot of bottlenecks in it, which is okay in the beginning. I think that reselling is great for a lot of people when they want to get into e-commerce and start understanding things. It's a good place to build muscle. It's a good stomping ground. However, at some point, it doesn't really turn into a business as much as people think that it does. Because as a side hustle, it's still very manageable for a person to do it. But once you start getting bigger and bigger, you'll see that every single channel out there goes through the exact same issue, but they seem to not want to admit it. Not only that, there is a hideous echo chamber going on right now of misinformation. And for that, we need to really understand exactly how misinformation starts even in the first place. So I pulled up a graph over here that I want to share with you guys, okay? Which basically, it kind of starts like this. A trusted source will go ahead and put out a claim that happens to be kind of inaccurate, but then a second source will go ahead and really lazy just regurgitate exactly what is said. So there's a blind repetition going on. Then what happens is that between these two guys, there is a confirmation bias. So the first outlet is like, you see what I'm saying? Like what I said is true. And then they go back and forth with this. And then before you know it, this piece of misinformation becomes more than just truth. It becomes gospel. So what I'm talking about today is specifically about like the whole draft bank system. It's simply not true what they're saying and what is happening, okay? And I'm going to prove it to you guys. So today's video that we're going to be critiquing is from David Palayo. Now, David, I have nothing against you. It's not specifically about you. This is why I picked your video, because you dropped this about 24 hours ago at the time of me recording this. In fact, I had to record this video about 3 or 4 times because I got really fired up in many parts and I needed to just, calm down a little more about it, because I really can't stand idly by and then watch this kind of grift constantly taking place. I know that's very hard to hear that I call it a grift, but that is exactly what it is. If you look up eBay draft banks, all right, he's not the first person to do this video. Everybody is doing this video. So, draft bank over here, draft bank. We already know this guy's one of the biggest charlatans. Another one on draft banks over here. He does a second video about it. Okay, more draft bank problems and stuff like that. And it just keeps going on and on with more draft bank tips, right? So let me start explaining exactly what the problem with draft banks are, right? It's simply not true, and it's not only just a misunderstanding of business in general and algorithms in general, it is also a misunderstanding of your own business model. So the thing is, the more all of these gurus that start to talk about, the technical part of stuff, the algorithm behind the inner workings, the back end and stuff, the more they expose themselves for really not knowing what they're talking about, right? Because at some point, you have to really explain the ins and outs of people, and then they make up stuff. And if you listen very carefully, they openly admit that they don't know what they're talking about. So before we get into this video, I want to define a couple of things, all right? If you are able to constantly get a supply of something to sell something, and you built up, from supply to a sales channel, and you could do the same listing and sell it over and over again, that's not reselling. Okay. That is distributing. For example, did you know that on eBay, Best Buy has a store as well? And if you look, they have like 8,000 items listed. So when we click on just like the first item here, this Red Dead Redemption, when you look at it, they have 913 copies sold. That's not reselling. We all agree on that. So the problem with the reseller term is that there's a lot of stores out there that could also be argued as resellers, such as DD's Discount, TJ Maxx, Ross Dress for Less. But the problem is that the whole business model is about dealing with one-off items. And when you're a single person dealing with one-off items in an online kind of way, the business model, the nature of it completely changes for you. One of the biggest problems that I see is two particular bottlenecks. The first one is about how every single time I buy something in order to sell something, if it sells, I have to quickly replace it so I have something to sell. If it doesn't sell, I have to quickly replace it so I have something to sell. So in order for the sales not to dip, I have to constantly be sourcing and putting up new things. We all understand that. But for some reason, somebody initially, we don't know the origin, started to make the claim that, hey, you could do a draft bank, et cetera, et cetera. And then as it gets regurgitated over and over again, it starts to become gospel. So we're going to watch this particular video together, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by this, and then we'll be critiquing what he said. If you pay attention to the stuff that he says, he openly admits he doesn't really know what he's talking about.
So in this video, we're going to be talking about why eBay shuts your sales down out of nowhere. It seems like it happens to a lot of people all the time. Some people don't know why this happens. Let's get into it.
So he says shuts your account down out of nowhere, which absolutely does not happen.
All right, guys, so we're going to get right into it. eBay is a very picky platform, I noticed, and I don't like it. But they want you to be listing every single day on the platform.
Where does it say that? Where has eBay ever made the claim that you have to be listing every single day? See, the thing is that the burden of proof is on you when you say something like that. You're making a claim saying that eBay wants activity, they want engagement every single day. Now, I've heard plenty and plenty of gurus specifically say this, okay? I don't even have to name names because it's literally every single one of them believe this. So the point is that where does it actually say this? And I guarantee you nobody can pull up that information because it doesn't exist. There's no evidence to suggest this.
At one point, I had 16,000 items listed in my eBay store, and if I missed a day or two, I wouldn't see the repercussions of missing a listing day right away. But if you wait like a week, out of nowhere, boom.
So your business is based on constantly replacing the item so that like you have things to sell, right? So if you don't list anything for a week and then the sales go downwards, isn't that just the nature of your business? Why do you blame eBay? Well, why not understand that it is because of your business model? It's the nature of what it is. So either we can start to recognize that eBay reselling is unsustainable on its own. It requires you to constantly go out and chuck up more firewood and then come back and put it into the furnace. That's exactly how eBay reselling works. There's no voodoo magic or shadow banning or anything that eBay is doing on their part.
They just drop. Your sales just drop. And that happened to me recently where I missed a couple of days and my sales plummeted. I don't know.
Right. So when you think about when people get out of the eBay reselling game, what happens? The sales start to dip. So for the last month, they will still do, if they normally do $6,000, they'll probably just do like $5,000 because they stopped replenishing for that month. And then the next month after that, probably something like $3,000, and then $1,800, and then $800, and then, $200, and then $50. So it's obviously going to start sliding downwards because you're not maintaining the business anymore, because eBay reselling requires constant maintenance in order to do this business. So that's exactly what's going to happen, especially when you think about the whole nature of every single haul that you bring home from sourcing in order to do eBay. It's going to be divvied up into three portions. It's going to be the high STR items, mid STR items, and low STR items, aren't they? Because when you think about exactly what happens if you bring 30 items home and you list them all up at the same time, you're going to have some stuff that's going to sell immediately. You're going to have some stuff that's going to take maybe 10 days to 2 weeks. And then you're going to have the stuff that Maybe it's going to sell, maybe it won't sell, maybe it's going to need a lot of time, maybe it will never sell. We don't know until it sells. So therefore, when you think about items like this, accrued over time, accumulated over time. So when he says that he has 16,000 listings at one point, I don't see that as a badge of honor. I see that as a pile of dud items and another bottleneck in the business, which is, what do you do with all these unsold items? You need a way to liquidate it. You need an exit strategy somehow. So I've already said before that many of these gurus who are a little bit more established, what do? They go into palleting. They pallet the whole thing and then they try to pawn it off to somebody else. That's how they stay alive in this business, because when you think about the margins in this business of doing reselling, especially if it's vintage and used stuff, sometimes it goes for very high, sometimes it doesn't go for very, very high. When people do a lot of different videos when it comes to, what solds and stuff, you'll see that they ended up taking offers, or they ended up giving offers, or lowering the price somehow. So the margins are already razor thin. And then when you add up all the stuff that's behind them that didn't sell, that kind of cuts into the business as well, what do you do with those things? Some gurus even go as far as to tell you to maybe discard or donate the item if you're completely stuck with it and you need the warehouse space. So now we're just teaching people how to lose money. The problem is that nobody can source things at 100% efficiency. And then on top of that, we have to replace items that we sell or don't sell. So the whole nature of the business, that's what it is. It is what it is. So eBay's not doing anything to you.
Or nowhere. And then it picks back up, but
right, it picks back up when you start listing stuff again, of course.
From like people from TikTok or Instagram saying like, "Hey, why do my sales suck? I have like 300 items listed and it's all like good stuff. Like, why is it not moving?" And basically, guys, eBay just rewards the people that are the most active on their platform. And I like to list every single day, Monday through Sunday.
This is going to be a little bit more of an anecdotal story, but it happens all the time, right? Which is, somebody will write to you and say, "Hey, how come it's not working for me? I did everything that you said and it's still no good." And then what happens is that when you go over his account or his situation with a fine-tooth comb, then you find out that no, he didn't do everything that you said. He thought he did, and that's why it's not working. So many times if somebody comes up to you and says, "I got 300 good items, how come none of it is selling?" Right. The problem is that every single item that you sell needs to be combined with a good listing. So sometimes what happens is that, okay, let's say you do have 300 good items like that are in demand. You spelled something wrong, you listed it in the wrong category. Something is off here. And we need to find, judge things by a case-by-case basis in order to get a proper answer of what's happening. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you have 300 listings and none of them are selling, chances are it's more you than it's eBay than anything else, because eBay, they don't make money if things don't sell. So they're not going to shut things off. So one of the biggest criticism that I have for this is that everybody has gone through this anecdotal experience before, which is the idea that when you're first starting off, or you have a friend or something that doesn't really take reselling very seriously, they just want to pawn off a couple of items from home. So they go ahead and then they take like 2 or 3 items, a couple of handbags, a pair of shoes or something like that. And then it sells maybe 8 months to 3 years later, somewhere in between there. But they don't care because they're not a real reseller. Their livelihoods don't depend on this. And by the time they get the notification email that says, "Congratulations, your item has sold," yada, yada, yada. Okay, great. Let me go find it in my closet and then pack it up and then ship it out. So how does that happen if you're not active? If I only have 3 listings that I just let it sit there, and then one sold 3 months later, one sold 8 months later, and one sold 2 years later, what's happening? Is eBay helping me now? eBay's not doing either one, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, eBay cannot disrupt the ecosystem. It cannot disrupt the organic traffic of itself, because it's going to lose customers that way. Do you know how big Amazon is versus eBay in terms of items sold? There is 2.5 times more users of Amazon than eBay. However, Amazon produces about 60 times more sales than eBay does. And yet Amazon is in first place and eBay is in second place. So you could just see that it's basically Jupiter versus like, Mars, Venus, like everybody else is very small compared to Amazon. So the reason why I bring this up is because the difference is already ginormous, right? So eBay does not want to lose any more footing than it already has to a marketplace like Amazon, especially since eBay came out first before Amazon did. So therefore, what happens is that every single item that's being pushed on eBay are the things of high conversion. Those are the ones that get to the front line because those are the things that already sell. So when they show that to their other customers, it's more likely to sell. So if an item already has 150 sales on it, eBay wants to push that thing to 400 sales, 1,000 sales, 4,000 sales. It really, really wants to just do that because it knows it's going to get consistent conversion that way. And that's how it makes their money. But things that need 2 years or 3 years to sell, it's not going to shut it down either because it still makes bank every time something moves. So why would it stop something like this? What it cannot do is take an item that nobody really wants and shove it in people's faces, because then you're going to lose buyers. And when you lose buyers, you lose sellers, and that becomes a vicious downward cycle. And before we know it, Etsy is bigger than eBay. That is the problem. And that's why it's not going to happen, because organically, it doesn't make sense for eBay to go do something like that. That's why when you spend money on sponsored ads, it specifically says sponsored ads, because that way, when the customer looks at eBay, it doesn't say, yo, this is not what you know what I mean? This is not specifically what I'm looking for, or what is this, garbage or whatever. The thing is that it specifically says it is a sponsored listing. That's why it's at the top of the searches. And then right underneath that, now you have your top rated items. That's how eBay actually works. And we all know this, yet we're here doing this draft bank thing, and then we're giving this advice that is actually kind of contradictory to what we're originally talking about. The point is that these two truths cannot exist at the same time, and that's why this of what he's saying is the misinformation, and it's not the truth.
The way I'm able to do that is not by listing every single day, sitting on the chair and listing items Monday through Sunday, because I don't work weekends. I haven't worked weekends in a very long time. If I do work on the weekends, I'm outsourcing, having fun with it, like the fun part of it, right? I don't really list on the weekends manually, but I just have a draft bank. And what a draft bank is basically, let's say Monday through Friday, we try to do 7 days worth of work. If my goal is to do 10 items per day, Monday through Sunday, every single day, 365 days a year, Monday through Friday, we have to do like 15, 16 listings and save 5 to 6 every day in order to have extra to launch listings on the weekend. So you put them in the draft bank, you put them as uncompleted, and then you launch them. That's changed everything because, I still miss some days sometimes, and then eBay will just, boom, it'll just crash within like a week. And then it picks back up once you start being consistent again. But let's say you haven't.
Let me make this into very simple business terms in order to understand this. What is the difference between making 50 sales today, 50 sales tomorrow, versus making 80 sales today and making 20 sales tomorrow? It's the feeling. That's what changed, right? So if I'm doing 50 sales today, 50 sales tomorrow, it's very consistent. My mood is very good on it. If I'm doing 80 sales today and then 20 sales tomorrow, I'm going to feel like, oh, the business is dipping. But ultimately, it's still the same 100 sales. So it's the same work and the same amount of sales that he's actually talking about, because when we judge our businesses, we judge it by weekly, monthly, quarters, yearly. So are we doing the business based on our feelings, or are we doing it based on the math? So when you think about exactly what he said, if you take the example of doing 10 listings every single day, and let's say we're doing all the listings in one day, right? So it would either be you do 70 listings on Monday, or you do 10 listings every single day. Isn't that the exact same thing? So if, let's say, doing 10 listings takes you 1 hour to do, so you would do 1 hour of listings every single day. And then on Monday, instead, let me just do 7 hours and just bang them all out. What's the difference? Ultimately, what's going to happen is that like I said before, right? You're going to have your high STR items that's going to move instantly and then lower and lower. So basically what could happen, a simulation would be like, let's say we had 70 new items listed into our store. 15, 20 of them are going to fly off the shelves immediately. And then as the days go by, we're going to have less and less. The next day only sell 8, the next day only sell 7, the next day less and less, until on the final day on Sunday, we only sold like 1 or 2 items. So now it feels like the sales are dipping, as opposed to let's put it in a draft bank and then sell it over time, week after week, so that we're moving constantly, consistently 5 or 6 items every single day. But ultimately, at the end of the month, what is the total? The total is the exact same thing. If you're doing 10 listings every single day, then 7 days, you have 70 listings. Then on 30 days for the whole month, you have 300 listings. And for the whole year, you're talking about 3,650 listings, right? Okay. So if we consistently did something like that, but we did no more than, for the 365 days, 10 listings every day, why would you have more sales if you didn't do more listings or less listings? You see what I'm saying? So it doesn't really matter if you divvy it up and then, let's say, put it in a draft bank, so every day. In fact, I would argue that it is far better for you to just go ahead and list everything that you have every single time you come home with a new haul, because you are respecting opportunity costs when it comes to that position. In business, one of the wisest things to tell people is that no amount of money ever bought back a second of time. So once you understand this principle and you keep it close to your heart, then you know that every single time I have a new shipment of anything, it is punishable by death if I don't list it immediately, because everything that you have, as good as the item as it is all completely useless if you don't put it on those digital shelves. So therefore, it would be far better to take those 70 items, slap them on your account as soon as you can, to just see which ones are going to sell right now, so that you get your answers right now of which ones sell and which ones you're going to get stuck with, and which ones that you should start thinking about an exit strategy for. That would be the proper way to put on the entrepreneurial cap when you're doing business, not just get tied down and bogged down by constant busy work. I have never seen a business model such as eBay reselling that creates as much busy work than any other business model out there, because you have to go out, right? Source, bring it home, take the photos, process the item, clean the item, et cetera, to do it all over again every single time it sells. So basically, every single time you're doing another listing, you are starting from scratch over and over again. While other places, just like Best Buy, they put up one listing, Red Dead Redemption, they made sure that they could get more. They have the distributor rights from Sony, and now they sell it over and over again. That doesn't mean that you're going to do exactly what Best Buy is doing, but the idea is still that you have to have a constant supply source is a good item that you establish in the beginning with a smaller quantity that you could reorder in the future, so that you're not putting up new listings over and over and over again, and constantly you feel like I'm being burned out. I'm constantly spinning that hamster wheel, because the problem is about input versus output. I'll get more into that in a second. Let's listen to more of what he has to say.
Been listening a while, and your sales are just terrible. You had like 300-400 items. Your sales are terrible. And you want to pick it back up. All you have to really do is start listing every single day. Wait about a week or two before eBay starts sending you traffic.
That is also false. All you have to do is list every single day. Even Chris from Daily Refinement has said that there was a guy who believed so much in this draft bank system that he just got a whole bunch of postcards that he lists for like 2 cents or something. And what happens is that he just puts them all up and then spreads them out throughout the week so that it would help with the activity and engagement of his account. But here's the thing. Rationally, okay, if I were to ask you, does a fresh listing get promoted by eBay? Meaning, does eBay promote a fresh listing just for the sake of it's a new listing? Does it promote it? Does it help it in some way? It doesn't. It just simply goes into the stack of all the other new items. Now, secondly, does new listings promote old listings? Why would that be the case? How does that make any sense? Every single listing is performing on its own individually. That's how it always worked. So where did you get this narrative from that you would put this together? And for the first time you ever heard of this whole draft bank system, how come nobody has questioned it up until now? This is what's very strange to me. Okay. So this is what I think. A lot of these people who are doing this eBay reselling, they don't actually have as much business acumen as they claim to be. They're not actual business professionals. Otherwise, you would easily notice that this is not what's happening. It's the nature of the business that's causing you to have to constantly, replenish the item. Otherwise, you're going to feel a dip in the sales. So here's the thing, right? If we do 80 sales day one and then the rest of our items lose potency, so we do 20 sales the next day, that feels like a dip in the sales. But if we were selling an item that sells consistently 5 units every single day, and then we have 10 different SKUs, so we're selling 50 items yesterday, 50 items today, and we know we're going to sell 50 items tomorrow. Now we're happy because we don't feel the dip in the sales. This is an anecdotal feeling. It's just not the way to approach business.
So they know that they can trust you. They reward the people that are the most active within the platform, the more items you list every day, or the consistent items you list every day, with shipping on time every day is the reason why you get good sales. So
shipping on time every day is the least that you can do, because when you think about doing eBay competitively against other places and you're doing it professionally, having a top rated seller account is the least that you can do, because everybody else who's doing this professionally is also a top rated seller. So that becomes par. So if you're not shipping stuff at a timely manner, you're missing tracking information and stuff like that, you're eventually going to be below rated. And when you're below rated, you're going to have your account. That's when they're actually going to reduce the visibility of your account. So when you're not performing up to par, you will be punished for it. That is absolutely true. But that's not the same as saying that, oh, if you're doing very good, like eBay will boost you. Nobody's boosting you. It's just regular. We have to make that crystal clear so that people understand how to plan their business strategies. This is what I mean by there's so much misinformation out there, and it's constantly being regurgitated and cycled back and forth that it has become gospel. You'll check out this video later with all of the comments below, and everybody's, big thumbs up, totally agree, etc., etc. That's the indoctrination that's happening right now, that people don't seem to understand the accuracy of this information. This doesn't actually happen in other fields. When you're talking about fields like, batteries, electronics, physics, whatever, there's plenty of people in the comments that will correct this stuff because everybody is a scholar in this. But somehow, when it comes to eBay reselling, the conversation on YouTube, there is so many videos like this, not just about draft banks, but about other things regards to eBay that is just 100% not true. And it doesn't even make sense when an actual business professional explains it to you.
If you guys are doing it part-time, if you guys are kind of starting out, or if you're just maybe doing a good amount of items, but you're not listing every day, that's probably what's killing you. Like if you were to list, let's say 30 items for the whole week. Let's say you're just starting out. You're doing 30 items in a whole week and you list them all on Monday, and then you're excited and you're waiting for the sales to come in. They're probably not going to come in. I suggest people to spread those 30 out throughout.
If you put up 30 items immediately and you're waiting for those sales to come in, it's probably not going to come in. But if you spread it out, then it's going to come in. That really doesn't add up, does it? Let's say you were a company like BlendJet. Do you guys know what BlendJet is? BlendJet was those little hand blender things. They're really, really big, really, really popular. They're all over Costco in 2-pack bundles and stuff. So basically, BlendJet doesn't sell anything else. Literally, their company is called BlendJet. They are dedicated around selling just that one single item. So how many listings does BlendJet need in order to have an eBay store? Basically one, maybe two, where one, you just sell one and it's all the colors, or you sell the 2-pack of different colors and you could do different combos and stuff like that. So how many variations of listings could they actually put up? So what are they going to do? They're going to put up some postcards on the side, or they're just going to take one and then just keep toggling it and for what? There's no reason to. If an item has conversion on it, it's going to perform well organically, and eBay is going to automatically constantly push it. If anything, understanding exactly what an algorithm is, it's not this living, breathing kind of organism or something like that. What an algorithm is just a set of rules. It's actually a dead thing. It's actually just a basic script that follows a set of rules. If this, then that. It's just that simple. It doesn't actually watch for activity. It doesn't actually scan your photos if they're good or bad photos. All it knows is that if this photo is pixelated or if it's clear, if it's matching, the amount of pixels, or the pixels are too small in order to be blown up for people to see. It knows things like that, all the technical number stuff. That's all an algorithm actually is. So it's not this scary thing that, you have to appease the eBay gods all the time. If anything, I have a lot of other videos that specifically say that from these gurus, right? That like, I'm getting so tired of having to appease the eBay gods. There's no eBay gods, and that's not how eBay works.
The whole week. And let's say if you're doing 7, 1 a day, don't do 7 one day and then have the rest of the week off on listing. Have some kind of activity going on within your store.
What for?
And just keep it on. Like, for some reason, eBay shuts down your sales.
Okay, so right here, okay, for some reason, eBay shuts down your sales, meaning that he doesn't even know what the reason is for eBay shutting down your sales. eBay doesn't shut down your sales. Your business model starts to decline if you don't start replenishing stuff. And having 16,000 listings is not as helpful as you think it is, because 16,000 items accrued over time is a lot of things that haven't sold for a long, long time. So what you have left over are 16,000 items of all low STR. Had those 16,000 items been all freshly sourced and listed, you would have a third of it just blow out the door within the first week. And it would be more work than you could possibly handle, rather than what's happening right now. You're seeing him stand in front of tons and tons of stuff. If anything, you see every single one of these eBay resellers come in, week out, making these videos standing in front of all of the same things that they haven't moved. And I just find that, very strange. Because look, it's not like I don't personally have items just like this on shelves that, I could go ahead and stand in front of. I'll try to put up a photo of it. But the point is that like, it's different to have an established item versus like these one-off items. If an established item that you have sells like 3, 4, 5 every single day steadily, if you only were down to 1 copy left, it would instantly be gone, maybe even before lunch, because it sells 3 or 4 copies every single day. And what you want is to pivot your business to a point where the listings and the items you do has some form of success retention. You have to be able to retain that success model over and over again. So all you have to do is replenish the item, not go out constantly in this trial and error phase and find new items to replace it. So I sold a pair of sneakers. I need something else to sell. So what? I go out and find a handbag. Maybe it sells, maybe it doesn't sell. Okay, that doesn't sell. So I run out and then I go get a necklace or something like that, put it up on eBay. Does it sell? I'm just running back and forth constantly, right? And playing this slot machine constantly, instead of saying, okay, I found this particular item. It is a camera bag and it sold very well. I could get more of it and then come back and then, all right, I got 5 bags. I'm just going to put them on and then see what happens. All right, it sold like 2 or 3 and I finished it in about 2 or 3 days. Let me go out and get more camera bags and then repeat this process. That is the sane method of doing things. Not to say like, okay, I sold this camera bag. Great. Let me go out and then go get a pair of shoes. That doesn't make sense, because then I would just be in the trial and error phase again, because I don't know what sells until it sells. Because for any reason out there, there could be stuff in the marketplace that I overlooked the reason why. It could be a dying trend. A lot of people talk about, how they love Nikes, but there's a lot of people talk about specifically how they hate panda ducks, right? So it could be a lot of reasons. The fidget spinner, a lot of people were buying fidget spinners. Suddenly they died overnight. What happened? You could be part of that end of the trend when you picked up some fidget spinners. A lot of things could happen. So that's why we need to go ahead and put items into the market and test them. If they sell, then let's do more. If they don't sell, okay, let's not do that again. That is the proper way of doing business. It's not, okay, I found something that sold and then let me go get something else. Because then you're just always, turning under rocks, right?
Your store and just keep it on. Like, for some reason, eBay shuts down your sales. And I've been doing this for 5 years, been on a platform like way longer than that, like 10 years, and it happens every single time. And especially the last couple of years now that I've been more serious.
It happens every single time because for the past 5 to 10 years, you have been nothing but a reseller. That's why it is your business model. I hope David understands that I very much mean well, and I'm trying to help this community very much because too much misinformation, too many actual grifters are regurgitating this stuff. If anything, I 100% believe what everything that David says, that he believes this is the truth. You know, I totally am with him on that. I don't think he's trying to cheat anybody or lie to anybody.
As soon as you miss a couple days, you get a couple days of bad sales, and then it ramps back up, and it's just like a delayed effect of like a week and a half. So if you guys really want to jumpstart your sales, start spreading everything out. Start getting like a exact amount that you kind of aim for so that you can actually be consistent. Try to get a little formula going to where, okay, Monday through Wednesday, I do this many so I can have X amount of listings for the whole week. But yeah, guys, eBay wants you to be listing every single day. Right now, I have a bunch of stuff in my draft bank. I'm about to go launch it. And then I'm going to take more pictures so I can have more stuff in my draft banks to make sure I don't miss a single day.
Right. So eBay wants you to list every single day, but it doesn't explain two types of sellers. Professional sellers like myself who have listings that say 50 sold, 150 sold, and I don't have to put up any more than 1 or 2 listings every single year. How come my sales and my store doesn't get shut down? Also, it doesn't explain people who are just casual sellers who just put up 5 or 6 items that are just personal items that, you know, they don't want to deal with anymore. I personally had a girlfriend back in college where she would buy Kate Spade purses, use them for a month and try to keep it as clean as possible and then sell them back on eBay. That way, whatever money that she could get back, she could go ahead and buy new purses so that she could always stay hip in fashion, right? So sure, it was a diminishing return, but she used her own money to cover the losses of that because she cared about the fashion more than anything else. Okay, so my point is for the casual seller, how come their stuff is not shut down? Then how do you explain things that sell far, far later? And plus, I'm sure his items are work exactly the same thing because you have 16,000 items. I'm sure there are plenty of stuff that has sat on his shelves for over 2 or 3 months. How do you explain those things have sold? It's because you're constantly engaging new activity and you put up new listings, so it's going to promote those old listings. That doesn't make any sense. I promise you, if I sat down with David and we just had a coffee together and I explained this to him, he would understand exactly where I'm coming from and how none of this actually makes any sense whatsoever. So there's no voodoo, okay? Ultimately, at the end of the day, there's no voodoo.
And you know, it's a grind. It's not easy. Like, especially if you guys have other stuff going on, to be consistent within this, it's even hard doing it full time. I do it full time on top of with like the social media and stuff, but you know, some people do struggle being consistent every time. But it's just like a mindset switch where you're on that mode. You know, I always compare it to like working out because let's say if you're in diet mode, you're locked in, you're doing your cardio, you're going to the gym all the time. It's kind of like that with eBay. But yet you have to be like that all the time if you want good sales all the time. If I want to be in shape all the time, I have to be going to the gym all the time. I have to be eating clean all the time.
I 100% agree with what he said on paper. That is absolutely true. Now, my gripe with a lot of these YouTubers that talk about business, about eBay online on YouTube is because they mix this mindset with a lot of false information. Okay, so let's go ahead and use his analogy, for example, of the whole working out and stuff. Okay. True, you have grit, you have the mindset, right, to push through when times get hard. But the thing is that you still need to have the technical knowledge of how to exercise. Otherwise, you could hurt yourself lifting weights, correct? So when we think about what's happening here, if you're teaching people the wrong mechanics, the wrong technical knowledge paired with that strong grit, you know, the types of videos where they do all this motivational fluff, right? So you've seen it before. Every single one of these guys has done some type of motivational video where they tell you things like put boots to the ground, you got to work harder at it, easy money's not easy. How does it go? How does it go? Good money is not easy, easy money's not good, or what was the other one? If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Okay. Those things are great on paper. However, if you're running and chasing in the wrong direction, that kind of motivational speech will kill you, wouldn't it? Because if your business is inefficient and somebody says, yeah, but you just got to love what you do and then push hard, you are wasting your life doing this, because at some point you don't have to be doing this thing anymore. So I'm going to show you guys a listing later to just show you where you could possibly pivot to instead.
And it kind of goes like that with everything, guys. You got to put in the work. The sales aren't going to come. eBay's going to favor the people that are going the hardest for them. And that's just the truth. And if I want the best results, I got to list more items, be extremely consistent.
I don't do business for eBay. So about eBay promoting the people who that go hardest for them. No, it's because you have a good item paired with a good listing, because the sale is not going to work without that combination. You can't just have a really good listing, but then a very poor item that nobody wants. That's not going to make a sale. You can't have a really good item with a really poor listing. That's not likely to make a sale. So we both can agree on that. We can all agree on that. That's very simple to understand, right? So when you put it in those terms, you understand that I'm not doing this because of eBay or whatever. It's because organically, if I do all the right things, it would sell on any platform. It's not specifically just eBay. So it's not that you have to go hard for eBay. It's that you have to go hard on eBay reselling in order to make it work. Because eBay reselling is a one-to-one, non-scalable business model. I'll explain exactly what I mean. If you go ahead and put in 100% effort into eBay reselling, you're going to get back less than 100% every single time. So if you go source, let's say 100 items, how many of those items are definitely going to sell quickly, and how many of those items are going to sell later, and how many of those items are not going to sell at all? So let's take the portion that's definitely not going to sell at all for the sake of simple math. Let's say 30% of the things that you choose do not sell at all. So we are sourcing at 70% efficiency. That means all the effort, time, money, energy that I put in, I only get 70% of the outcome every single time, because I'm stuck with that 30% that I need an exit strategy for. Let's say I do have an exit strategy for that. Then that would mean that if I did 1,000 items, I would still only get 1,000 of the input that I put in. It doesn't compound over time. It's not the same as doing a single item that sells very, very well. For example, let me get out of this real quick and then pick up this one for you guys. This is a cutting board that I found on Amazon, all right? It is ranked number 5 in cutting boards right now. So this is a trendy item that is stainless steel on one side and then a type of fiber type plastic on the other side. So why is this getting hot? Because people are more and more self-conscious every day when you think about the paleo, keto, all that stuff. So when you look at the proteins on this, to slice it on stainless steel is just less bacteria. At least that is the perception of it. So this stuff has done very, very well for itself. Now, when you look at this, how many units sold this month? 15,500, okay? How much revenue? $370,000 per month. So a lot of these gurus talk about like how, hey, I'm a 6-figure seller and I made this much revenue, et cetera, right? We did $260,000 this year, et cetera, and now I'm a guru and I could teach you guys. There are people who are not on YouTube, not talking, because they're doing $372,000 worth of sales every single month. They don't have time for YouTube. They're not going to come here and explain. That's why there's barely anybody like me talking about this stuff. Now, the reason why I do this channel is because I'm more established and I really want to just start fixing exactly, what the misinformation is out there when it comes to stomping grounds like eBay, because that's where everybody needs to begin. Amazon is not for beginners. You need capital in order to play the Amazon game, because you need enough inventory in order to do the whole FBA stuff. FBA is a lot more complicated than what people think it is. There's a lot of tutorials out there, but it's missing so much context. And I'll get into that later on, because my channel actually hasn't been around for that long as far as talking about business, because all the years, right, this channel was dedicated to a different topic. And because that topic got shut down, so that's why I don't do those videos anymore, I wanted to restart the channel because I wanted to just go ahead and talk about something else that I know, because I enjoy doing videos, period. But ultimately, what I'm saying is that if you're at this position of where David is, you have your warehouse, you have $16,000, 16,000 items, right, worth of inventory and stuff. You should seriously think about pivoting to something else over here, okay? Because ultimately, this is just one item. This is just one single item. How many listings do you think he needs? He just needs this one listing, and he just keeps pushing this, right? So the problem is that when you are doing eBay reselling, right, it takes up so much of your time. Between this and working out, he has no time to really, really think about business and to spend his time studying and researching how other platforms are working, right? And how you could do something better than what you're currently doing right now. Because eBay reselling is an excellent tool for people to first start off. It is an excellent side hustle. I totally agree with that. I totally think so. I would tell anybody who is starting off in e-commerce to do a little bit of eBay reselling. But there is a huge pitfall in this, because once you do a little bit, you think that you could do more. Now, it's not that you can't do more, but rather you shouldn't do more, because there are better things to do out there. There are a lot of other YouTubers that specifically will tell you that there are better ways to make money. Every single person who has exited from eBay reselling has exited with that same line, which is, yeah, I did my stuff, I learned some things, but ultimately there are better ways to make money. That's the problem. It's not that they couldn't make it or they couldn't hack it. It's because they see the inefficiency of what's happening. It's just like I said before, it's just a one-to-one. You get out of it exactly what you put in. Things are supposed to compound over time. So they took that one item, that one cutting board. They probably didn't make that much sales in the beginning in its infancy stages. And then ultimately now it does 370,000 every single month. You see how that compounds over time? So the time that you put in, the 8 hours a day that you put in, it used to pay you 1x. Now it pays you 2x, 3x. And that thing probably pays him something like 50x the times that when he first started. You see what I'm saying? And that's how business is actually supposed to work. This is a hustle, is a grind for sure. It's very hard, and you're not getting out what you're putting in. That's my biggest criticism about eBay reselling that I want people to understand. I want you to know what you're really getting into. It's not so simple as just pulling it into the idea that business is hard. All business is hard, but eBay reselling is not just hard, it's also inefficient.
Assistant be like almost like a machine. At 5 in the morning, I have my items launch, and right now we're doing like 20 that I'm actually launching. But we've been taking like 40. We're doing like 40 listings a day right now. I just want to build up a good draft bank so I can actually sustain an increase in listings. Because
you listen to him say the words so that I could actually sustain. This tells you, you have to listen very carefully, that eBay reselling is not sustainable. Not sustainable in not the way that you think. It doesn't mean that, no, I could always go out and get more things. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that you have to constantly go out and get more things in order to sustain the business. That's what it means. So once you sell a thing, you have to go quickly and replenish it. Otherwise, what are you going to do? You can't replace it with the 16,000 items behind them, because those are all the low STR unsold items that are listed anyways, and they're just simply not selling. So you got to constantly find something new. Is this going to sell? Is this going to sell? Is this going to sell? You're constantly going through the same vicious cycle over and over again. And that's why you experience the burnout. If anything, he's talking about experiencing the burnout right now. He's talking about toughing through the burnout right now.
It's hard for me to be at like 40 a day right now and launch 40. I don't have that kind of momentum.
He just openly admitted that it is tough for him to even do 40 and then launch 40. Isn't there a guy called Tekken Sports that specifically says that, like, I do something around like, 80 or 120 every single day? Like I list 120 or I list 80, I source 80 or something like that. And then there was this other, Carrie at home who did the Tech and Sports Challenge, where she spent like 18 hours to do, 80 in the morning and then 80 at night or something like that, which leaves absolutely no time for her family whatsoever. So what is happening? Are they just so much better than David, or is David telling the truth that your efforts, your time, your energy, it's finite? So it is hard for him, a young man who works out every single day, to even put out 40. You see what I'm saying? So once we're talking about, hey, let's do 10 a day, let's do 20 a day, 30 a day. Yo, you're approaching, the physical human cap. There's a ceiling in this thing. And that's what I mean. This business is completely inefficient. You're constantly going out and getting more stuff, while there are other people who are doing proper business with just one item, just one chopping board, doing 300,000, 350,000 every single month.
With the draft bank to ensure that I can do that 7 days a week. So if I start doing 40 a day, it's very hard to do 40 a day. You need a little bit of wiggle room in there so you can actually do it consistently, because 40 a day, it's not something I've been used to recently. So it's just a huge jump. Like, don't take a huge.
So it's even recently, up until now, he's been doing this for like, what do you say, like 5 to 10 years or something like that. And just recently for him now, he has jumped to 40 a day, and he's struggling with it, right? That is like as much weight as he can handle. So you got to listen to these things very carefully of what's happening. They will tell you their experiences. You know what I mean?
Jump. You have to take little steps as you go. It just takes time with this eBay thing. You got to be patient with it. If you guys are doing it part-time, take your time with it and be extremely consistent. It's not hard. eBay is not hard. What's hard is showing up every single day, no matter what, no matter how you feel, and doing what has to be done every single day. Now, it's harder if you are trying to do 100 a day, 200 a day. That's insane, But for the most part, most people are trying to do something reasonable.
There's a lot of people that do eBay reselling that has never made it out of their homes, because when you look at his warehouse and you think about the overhead and expenses and what he has to do in order to stock all of these things, and these are expenses that are going to hit him regardless if he makes the sale or not, right? It's going to be brutal. It's not going to wait for you. So whatever you're doing has to have a lot of success retention. For example, if I don't have 4 or 5 items that are constantly moving 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 every single day, I'm not going to get a warehouse because the business is not sustaining itself. I'm the one who's constantly subsidizing the whole business with my time, energy, efforts, and stuff like that. I'm the one who has to, get up every day and drive out and tough it out. And, that's not the way you want to end up, especially for many of us who are a bit older. So when you think of something that's going to hit everybody, which is age, injury, sickness, how do you drive a moat around that? Like, how are you going to protect yourself from that? He gets up 5 a.m. every day to do this business. I also get up at 5 a.m. every day, but I don't go out and source. I don't do all this physical stuff. I sit in front of my desk and I do a ton of computer and paperwork instead. You know what I mean? I go through my emails. I check out my new offers and different items and stuff like that. And I think about things and I start planning for stuff. I don't do all of this physical stuff. That'll drive me insane. Earlier, he has said before that the fun part is making these sales. And that's what's going to make you happy every day. That's what's going to change your attitude every day. The bad part is doing all this busy work constantly and you totally feel burned out by it. I know exactly what you guys are talking about, because that's what happens in the beginning of all infancy stages of every single business. When you have to lay out all the foundation, that is the part that's going to be difficult. Those are the hurdles that you initially have to get over first before you have the resources in order to handle other things, bigger problems. But I can't imagine waking up every single day to lay out the foundation every single day, and it never ends for the next 5 to 10 years. You're just always laying down foundation. There's something wrong with this. There's something hideously wrong with this. And I want people to start to recognize what's happening. eBay reselling is a stepping stone to better business. That's really what I'm trying to say.
Which is like 5 to 10 a day. List those, get some good quality items, list those, and that's it. And that's all eBay is. And that one thing, which is being active every day, is what eBay wants to see the most. That's probably the most important thing right there. Being active every single day. If you guys are listing 10 a week, spread them out. Trust. You guys got to spread them out. You guys can do your listings in one day and spread them out, you know. But yeah, guys, that was it for this video. Drop 3 eagle emojis.
All right, let's get out of this. So let me come back up to the top cam. Guys, if you resonate with the message of correlation does not equal causation, then you understand that the claims that he's making, you have to be able to back that up scientifically. Like, where does it say that? And how do you know for sure that's what's happening? If all you have is some anecdotal evidence, well, every single time I do this, then this happens, then how do you know it's not? Because it's the nature of your business and you need to constantly replenish in order to do eBay reselling. It's not because eBay is messing with you. Anyways, guys, that is the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, consider giving it a like. And if you learned something, consider giving it a subscribe. So, as always, I'll see you guys in the next. Take care.